Hello, everyone. I'm Wenzhen Yuan. It's a great honor to be here to introduce our effort and exploration in the field of achieving high-dimensional sensing with vision-based sensors. So I started my journey in robotic research years ago with focus on robot tactile sensing. So we want to enable robots to perceive and understand the physical world through touch. And of course, in this process, the first step is that we want to get good sensors to help robots to feel the touch. And inspired by this, together with my PhD advisor, Professor Edward Adelson and other colleagues, we introduced the vision-based tactile sensor, Gelsight, to the community of robotics. So it's the first robot tactile sensor that targets at a very high resolution geometry sensing on the contact surface in the order of 10 micrometers. So here shows an example of how the sensor works. So we use a vision-based input to see the difference of, to indicate the contact geometries from the change of the color, as well as like painted those black markers on the surface, which indicates the contact forces. And this capability of sensing high-resolution geometry comes from the optical design of the sensor. So in short, the core part of the sensor is a piece of clear elastomer, which is coated by a reflective membrane. And these reflective membranes will make some special change when there's a contact with external objects. And if we carefully place lights from different directions in different colors and put the cameras in the other side to track how this reflection and shading changes, we can use that to indicate the change of the contact surface, especially on the contact surface normal, and even combine that with the photometric stereo algorithms to reconstruct the 3D shape of the contact surface. And finally, we made the sensor small enough to be installed on robots and found that it can help robots with different tasks in manipulations and perception. So for example, the most straightforward way to understand this is that the robot is able to see the lots of fine details of the shape, the texture of the objects in contact, and therefore have a very good understanding what kind of material it is, what the objects you are contacting, such as the case shown here, the robot is perceiving the fabrics. And also it helps a lot with manipulation tasks, especially when lots of precisions and dedications is needed. So here we show our examples of robots manipulating those deformable cables. And we can see that like from the geometry, we can know the directions and location of those cables. And by looking at the markers, we can understand the external contact information. And this can help robots to very precisely know what is the state of the current manipulations and help the robots to do this complicated cable routing task so that the cable can go through different pillars, different channels, and finally go through this, and finally being plugged into this slot. Okay. So through our many years' experience with Gelsight sensor, we found that vision-based sensors is really good. So it provides the very raw signals in the form of very high dimensionalities. So that means if we properly design the hardware and algorithms, it is also possible for us to reconstruct the high-dimensional information of the robot states. And that is exactly what soft robots need. So why is it that? So based on our experience from the introduction and previous talks, we know that soft robots are soft, they're deformable, and that means like their intrinsic have infinite degrees of freedom that can cause by both active actuation and passive contact with the environment. So that means like different from the traditional rigid robots, if we want to represent the state of a soft robots or configurations, it's of very high dimensionality. And so that it's very hard to perceive this configuration in the form of the shape of the robots. And vision-based sensor can potentially provide a good solution here. And specifically, we're trying to combine the design of embedded visions and those internal markers to provide some information of the current state of the soft robots. So in particular, this shows our design. So we designed these pneumatic-driven robot fingers, which provides a very large hollow space inside the robot fingers. And we then paint lots of black markers inside those hollow bodies, and then embedded cameras from the bottom to track the patterns of those markers. So as those simulated views shown, you can see that when the soft robot deforms in different patterns, those markers will also make a significant difference in the deformations. So we capture those change of the motions of the markers from the camera and use that to infer the current state of the soft robot. So this shows like intuitively how it works, but actually if it comes to the numerical modeling, it's always a big, lots of difficulties. So we try to approach this challenge with a learning-based method, and specifically, we build a neural network structure like this. So to represent this very high-dimensional, complicated shape of the soft robot fingers, we use those representations in the form of dense point cloud, and we started from the form of the robots in the undeformed phase, going through an encoder, generated a latent features, which is combined with the latent features extracted from the current camera's image of the marker's pattern. And then we use another encoders to combine the two features to generate the description of the current state of the robots, and which can be reconstructed into the form of a dense point cloud representing the robot's current shape. So this shows how the algorithm works. But you can see that a biggest challenge into the neural network model is that it requires lots of data to train the model. And especially that, like, for this kind of task, we need to have very precise, very high quality ground truth to know like what's the exact state of the robots, which is very difficult to get in with the real robots. So we believe that a good solution here is using simulation to collect the data. So specifically, we built this simulation system that combines physical simulation, physically based simulation methods. On the mechanical side, we use SOFA, and on the optical side, we use Blender. And in the simulation platform, we try to make our robots bend in different ways with different active actuations and different passive cases, and collect a data set of like over 3,000 cases, as shown here. And finally, we use that to train our neural network and transfer to the real robot in a zero-shot manner. And since our simulation is built based on physical-based manner, so the transfer is actually pretty good. So here shows the example of our test result with the real robot fingers, where you can see that the deformation of the real robots will also cause a significant change in those internal markers, and where we also do some pre-processing from the visual image and match that with a simulated data set. And we can use that to successfully predict the current shape of the entire robots in the form of dense point cloud, which matches pretty well from the ground truth that is collected by the RGBD camera from the external view. Okay. That summarizes our attempts to get high-dimensional proprioception sensing of soft fingers using vision-based methods. And we believe that that is the most important part for soft robot sensing, but another important part for soft sensing is tactile sensing. So if we have a soft grippers contacting some objects or grasping some objects, we want to know what did the soft robot grasp? What's the shape? What's the surface is like? What's the quality of the contact is like? So that inspired us to go further to design a tactile sensor for the soft robot. And specifically, we go back to our old works in Gelsight, and can we design a Gelsight sensor for soft robot as well? So the quick answer is yes, because it's a vision-based tactile sensors, and we already have the camera. So we just need to put those optical systems, which includes this reflective coatings, the deformable surface, and lighting system into these fingers. And exactly that is what we did. So inspired by this, so we designed this new sensory finger called PneuGelsight, which combines both proprioceptive sensing and tactile sensing within a same robot soft fingers and a single camera. So here shows the structure. It features a bellow structure fingers with a hollow space in the middle, and the camera looking into the inner surface of the finger from the back. And the illumination system of the tactile sensing part is generated with the optical fibers that guide lights from far away to the side of these robot fingers. And here shows what the data is like when we get from cameras. So here you can see that if you look at this change of the color patterns, it actually tells the contact surface, especially the textures. But if you look at the overall geometry features, that is highly relevant to the current banditures or deformation of this entire finger. So this shows our overall ideas of designing a new Gelsight. But actually, in the real cases, it's really difficult to design this. Because if you look back into the traditional design of Gelsight, they're all on the rigid base. So that means like all the optical or electronic components are fixed, and therefore they form a very precise optical system. And the precise optical system is the cornerstone of making a good tactile sensing system. But if we look at the soft robot system, that means like when it bends, everything moves, like all the components will change and the entire optical system will move. And also it's very difficult to fix all the optical components there as well. So that means like this poses extra challenge in sensing and design. So we try to look into a solution from two perspectives. One is to make a better hardware design, and the other one is to make a better algorithm design. So on the hardware levels, the best thing we learned is building this system of simulation-guided design optimization. So this is built upon a recent design tool developed in our lab. And in short, we try to use physical-based simulators to simulate the performance of a sensor. And based on that, we try to parameterize the design factors and propose evaluation metrics about how the sensor performs. And then we search over this design space and decide what is optimized design factors. And after we know what is the best design factors, especially for soft robots, we need to consider like the system need to perform well under different expenditure cases. After we fix on that, we move the design into real robots, and it turns out to be much better than our initial thoughts. So on software levels, we also turn to the learning methods. So this is our new neural network structures. It goes into two parts. Although the input is only a single image, but we firstly decompose the raw image into two independent channels. One goes to the neural network for proprioception sensing, and the other one goes to the part of tactile sensing. And the current state representation of proprioception sensing is also part of the input of tactile sensing, so that we can know exactly in this state what is the mappings of the contact surface normal, and therefore we can get a precise measurement and reconstruct the shape. And overall, the system works well. So here shows examples about like we use our fingers to contact different objects with different geometry. And you can see that they make very strong tactile patterns. And we are able to use our algorithm to reconstruct very nice shape and textures of the objects. And finally, we are also able to combine the two things together, both proprioception sensing and tactile sensing, and also the kinematics of this robot arm, so that we can get an overall 3D sensing of the very precise surface of the objects in the space. And we can even combine multiple touches information so that to get a larger scope reconstruction of the object surface. Okay, so that is a quick overview of what we have explored for using vision-based tactile sensors to help soft robot sensing. And specifically, I would like to thank my collaborator, Professor Chen Feng from New York University, and all those excellent students who really did the hard work here. And thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you, Wenzhen. It's great. We have a time for question. One question. Any question from the audience? So maybe I have a question for you about the integration. So you mentioned some challenges, of course, in the integration of such a system. But if you want to integrate in a closed loop control, and integrating such a sensing element in a soft robot, in your opinion, what are the main challenges or the next step that you are envisioning?
Mm-hmm. That is a good question. It's about like, for now we have a good sensing, how can we integrate that into a closed loop control manner of the soft robots? So we have lots of thoughts, and it's definitely something very exciting for our next stage work. So we believe like a fundamental challenge for soft robot perception and sensing is this very like high dimensional representation, and it's also like not very intuitive. So we're thinking about like instead of like trying to do the state estimations or control based on this like final representation directly. So we probably can use a low dimensional latent factor in the middle as a reference, and use that as a reference for like control. But like exactly how to do that, especially mapped to different cases, complicated contact cases, it still remains a big challenge. And we have been continuously looking into this, especially leveraging the tool of simulation.
Thank you so much. So I told you, they are great, so amazing speakers. So we thank again.